Hello everyone, welcome to a slightly different video than usual where we'll be tackling the backstory of Missing Time, what took place before the game even started, including the demon, its curse, along with the involvement of the curse within the Onishi clan. At the time of this recording, Missing Time has turned 1 year old. Many congrats to the developers and all who helped make this visual novel turn into reality, along with the game itself being a highly memorable experience. Back to the video. Imagine a world much like your own, with everyone and everything flown exactly as it has been in the real world, except the events in a particular part of Japan preceded events differently and being fictional, hopefully. In the beginning, there was the Earth and the Otherworld. In the Otherworld resides an unknown demon that at some point in time, at least 1,000 years before the events of Missing Time takes place, enters the real world through the Demon Gate. Through Kamachi's myth, the player learns early on in Chiharu's route that the demon was sealed away 1,000 years ago by the Shinto god, name of which I'll put on screen now as pronouncing it would take longer than the creation of this video to fathom out. Another point in time where the demon was discussed is late in Emery's route, where the town was built upon a sacred vein, the vein itself being an intersection between our world and the other world. The life oath of an Onishi is to ensure that the curse itself can never harm another soul like it did when it initially entered the world, though we learn later on in this route that the culprit of breaking the curse containment chamber was none other than Shizeo, for some fun. That topic, along with the motives behind Shizeo's will, being discussed in an upcoming video talking about the game cycle, along with the end goal that Shizeo has been fighting for time and time again. Going back between the events of Emery and her bad ending, Shizeo describes the demon's curse as something that hops from one person to another. When the current host dies off, then it latches onto a host nearby, in particular a potential host that at the time are under extreme strain, until there is nothing left but grief, then death. Other things mentioned about the curse were that it can grant the host otherworldly attributes that people would never normally be able to harness, though enhanced strength and senses are a little vague there. Come on, Shizeo. A question you might have is, was the demon and its curse in Missing Time inspired by any real-life superstitions, curses, or otherwise mysterious phenomenons? From asking one of the developers of Missing Time, the demon is something that they came up with for the game that's not inspired by anything in real life. Though from some incredibly thorough and constructive research, going through Google, I have found two similar curse-related materials that have happened in human history. The first being Evil Eye, a charm or necklace that is said to cast a host with its malevolent glare, which in turn will grant the victim misfortune, or in turn the user can use Evil Eye to be able to cast its misfortune upon those who they wish to have its supernatural properties. Sounds quite similar to the curse in Missing Time, where the source of the curse is from a demon, or in the Evil Eye's case the item in hand. Another ability of Evil Eye is said to be created to ward off the effects of the supernatural. We'll call this form the Good Evil Eye, while the other the Bad Evil Eye form. These are prominent around the Mediterranean, southern European countries, along with countries in the Middle East and Northern Africa as decoration and tradition pieces. Speaking of Northern Africa, the other paranormal / supernatural / occult theme that's similar to the curse in Missing Time is one referred as the Curse of the Pharaohs, this being something that when distributing the tome of the pharaohs can cause the disturber bad luck, illness and or death. Again, something that the curse in Missing Time would similarly cause and ultimately leading to the same outcome. While both of these kinds of curses have similar properties to the demon's curse in Missing Time, there's too many differences between the origins of the cause, misfortune, etc., and the actual effects that it has on the user to say that the demon's curse was inspired by these. And going through a history lesson of these two kinds of curses would be pointless, so let's get back to Missing Time rather than wasting any more time. The Shinto god itself, despite having a different surname, is an ancestor of the Onishi twins. If you look through your family's history, you'll notice that a surname can alter over time. Also, the Onishi are respected by all within the town. Well, most people anyway. Ember. If they're not an ancestor of the Onishi, then the Shinto god itself is at least someone who the Onishi founded upon in order to continue their work in protecting the peace of the town from supernatural threats. The god was there before the Onishi, and the Onishi followed the teachings of the god itself. The demon itself, through the myth, has the ability to create a curse that latches onto people, drive them to commit unspoken of abominations, including the memes of pancakes, just kidding. Abominations include a desire for blood, flesh and souls to enable the survival of the targeted host. This isn't the only thing that the curse itself can perform. It can also eat away at the target's sanity and drive them psychologically insane. Seen in ancient times when this demon came about in the first place, the Shinto god mentioned earlier meant to seal away the demon under the mountains in the town that's named in the future as Komachi. Out of everywhere in the world that you spawned in, demon, why on God's grace earth did you decide to spawn where a Shinto god is? You have 7 billion potential hosts for subjugation, well, much less than that over 1,000 years ago. You're some whacked demon. The Shinto god managed to imprison the demon in the mountains that the vein of the land lays, but through the bars of the prison itself, it was able to manifest its curse upon passerbys. Those passerbys would then sow the seeds of fear, pain, and hatred upon themselves and the people unfortunately are around them. It's not a bacterium or a virus that's passed around through coughing, sneezing, physical contact, among other things. It's a parasite that slowly and painfully eats away at the person's soul, controlling the host's very thoughts. Similar to the Nurax worm from Plague Inc. it evolved. Through many decades of the nearby population being war-torn, the town becoming a barren, uncultivated wasteland, a passerby priest felt pity on everyone who suffered from the curse itself, but no matter how many people that the priest had spared from prolonged suffering, the host itself could not be destroyed. The curse could only be contained and neutralized by a capable priest or priestess. The magical spiritual powers that they trained for years on end have the ability to eradicate the existence of the curse for good. It also eradicates the life of the host itself to eradicate the parasite. The motives of supernatural entities described by Emery vary from petty mischief to pure malice. Meddling with the supernatural untrained in any way, shape or form is most likely going to lead to nothing but trouble. And in so many ways from what we've learned, this demon along with its curse is not something to trifle with. Speaking of Emery, let us now discuss the Onishi clan and their involvement with both the demon and the curse that it perpetuates to all that are around it. Predating the existence of Emery and Shizeo, either from the success of the Shinto god's work of imprisoning the demon, or sometime after the passerby came along to slay all those who were under the curse some time after to get rid of their pain, the Onishi clan was formed, and their newfound duty is to watch over the prison that the demon resides in, and ensure that the curse never leaks. Minus the knowledge of the prologue novel that contains information that covers the experience that the Onishi clan undergone as the novel hasn't been released at the time of this recording, we have discovered throughout Shizeo's route that the duty that the Onishi clan has put forth under the public eye is not all good and pure that we have been told in face value. The Onishi clan's duty is to watch over the site in which the demon was imprisoned and ensure that it or its curse never escapes. However, in the history of the Onishi clan from Emery's and Shizeo's its predecessors, the clan itself performed experiments on people using the influence of the curse itself, namely their grandmother and from there their mother. The objective of performing the experiments was to find a way to destroy the curse or the demon once and for all, so that future generations of the Onishi clan will not need to be trained to be a shrine maiden, will not need to have their life shortened through continuous usage of their powers to suppress a curse. In the meantime though, with the wealth and influence of the Onishi clan, none would suspect anything malicious from the clan. But to understand the manifestations of the curse itself, one of the previous generations decided to start the unthinkable to understand the curse more, an experiment on people with the curse. More specifically, people who have no other family members that are either alive or no longer wanting that said person, including a person that went under the subject name V5. That is the only known subject mentioned in the game to have survived the experiments undergone by the Onishi clan. V5 is Ember Honoyasu. Yes, our friendly, fierce and ferocious occult club leader is the one that undergone the experiments and survived. Through the experiments undergone, Ember had severe consequences, such as having the curse of the demon inside of her. The curse itself allows Ember to have the inhuman strength that she has, along with the ability to transform into a hellhound, a mythical being engulfed with fire and an increase in overall body size. Every so often to survive, Ember needs to kill others in order to survive, and without the knowledge of the Onishi clan experimenting on Ember and others, would put Ember under a bad light. Being the only one to survive the ordeals in the occult club by nature is very suspect. Unintentional, because back when Emery and Shazeo were younger, Emery was the one chosen by their parents out of the two to be the successor of the clan, and Shazeo was the outsider in this case. So this brings the question, is Ember a victim in all of this? Or like the Onishi clan, another one of the perpetrators that brought forth the curse onto the world? That is for you to decide, as the viewer, and yes, I said another, because there's another person in Missing Time that has the influence of the curse inside of them. Though, unlike Ember, this was both unintentional and intentional. All of the time when the Onishi clan had another member of the clan brought forth upon the world, there would only be one baby, therefore the only one to choose from. But in this case, the Onishi mother gave birth to twins, and the one that was delivered first was Emery, so therefore she was the successor. I'm not going to lie, but with the way Shazeo is, the Onishi clan would be led to ruins years prior if she was the new head priestess and shrine maiden of the Onishi clan. The Onishi clan didn't know what to do with Shazeo at the time, so they decided to experiment the influences of the curse on Shazeo to see what happens. Shazeo is one with the Onishi's blood, so the mother and most likely father would be fascinated to see what happens when the experiments were undergone on one of their own. Suffering for years on end, the only thing that Shazeo wanted while undergoing the experiments was to see her sister along with have her comfort, but Emery was undergoing training to become the next successor, and as time passes by, Shazeo never forgave her sister for never being there for her. The experiments on Shazeo was the unintended part, as Shazeo had no control over whether or not she was experimented on or not. However, in the present day, when their parents were no longer around, Shazeo delved into the catacombs where she was experimented on to gain more of the curse's influences. This is the intentional part, and along with Ember, both Ember and Shazeo, and both victims of the curse, along with being weapons in their own cases of mass destruction for those that will die and despair upon those who see and or hear the deaths along with unnatural ways in which said victims died. Both Shazeo and Ember are pawns, puppets rather, of the curse, and while they are both victims of the curse, they are both antagonists in their own ways to set forth countless murders of people in Komachi, or were a part of Komachi in the past, through the direct effect of someone that a person knows who lives in Komachi, and that person was the main character's grandfather. That was the cause of the main character moving back to Komachi due to their grandfather's death. The cause of the death was none other than Shazeo and Ember. In the public eye though, it was a sudden heart attack, but nothing like that was recorded under the family's history, so the sudden occurrence of it was very disturbing. Not only do Shazeo and Ember feed from said person's flesh and blood, but also their fear, which was why Shazeo put the influence of the curse on the main character's grandfather, to both get that fear and an unsuspected death if the death itself can be written off as a heart attack. Both Ember and Shazeo targeted people that didn't have other family members that lived nearby, meaning their deaths would go as unwarranted as possible. Somehow Emery knew that her sister was up to no good, but never pressed Shazeo about it. If it were anyone else, Emery would deal with the situation in an Emery-like fashion, cold, ruthless, and without mercy. How Shizeo knew about the main character through their grandfather is unknown. Perhaps a conversation transpired about a grandson along with their friend Shiharu, though Shiharu I believe moved back to Komachi for family business reasons. So, both Shiharu and the main character moving back to Komachi was delightful for both Shizeo and Ember, more potential victims to subjugate and kill. Though both Shiharu and the main character have other family members nearby or rarely nearby in Shiharu's case. Then again, there's also a case of certain students, including one from a said car accident, along with the head of the cooking club, Jasmine, also being victims of Ember and Shizeo. Well, mainly Ember in Jasmine's case. We're getting a little bit off track here, but this was needed to put some groundwork into play about the rationality of both Ember and Shizeo, who are both people that are subjugated years of experiments and torture by the Onishi clan. Emery, unlike her predecessors, shrine maidens and head priestesses, is an exception. Rather than her own life force being drained, the parents of Emery and Shizeo have devised events where anytime Emery uses her powers, rather than Emery's own life force being drained, Shizeo's life force would be drained anytime Emery uses her powers. Sick, isn't it? Both a smart move from the parents of Emery and Shizeo, but also incredibly horrific for Shizeo, being the single point of life force extraction. Though through all of this, Emery has found a way to suppress the curse in Shizeo so that she lives for longer than if the curse run rampant, although in most endings, the curse did run rampant and only in Shizeo's good ending, the suppression was removed and she died shortly after opening up to the main character. Ember and Shizeo would commit their murders from the influences of the curse, and only later down the line does Emery learn that Ember was subject V5. While Emery is cold, straight to the point and devoted, there are things that Emery was kept in the dark, including V5, including the fact that Shizeo's life force would be drained when Emery uses her powers. The Onishi clan would bring in people with no other relatives to ensure that the identity of the clan would not be tainted. Those who died in the experiments would have been missed. All records of said person would be erased to ensure that said person's existence would seem like they never existed whatsoever. The curse was the cause for the Onishi clan to become a force of evil under the surface. On the surface though, the shrine of the clan are both under the influence of being innocent and a force for good. Secrets. Dark secrets always lay beneath your feet when you walk through the grounds of the Onishi shrine, and no one would dare question the influence or authority of the Onishi clan. No one would want to receive the Medusa-like glare of Emery Onishi. This is where this video ends. Hopefully this has explained the backstory of the game and how the events that transpires in the game happens. In the next video, which will be this time next week, we will be discussing the cycle of missing time, along with what the cycle entails, including what's mentioned in this video but microsized by a line or two. And from there, the secret route of the game and how that breaks the cycle. Thank you so much for watching, and once again a big congrats to Fluttering Abyss on the first year anniversary of Missing Time. Thank you to everyone including myself that has supported this game, and as always, take care of yourselves people.